Joe Biden's crucial victories in the Midwest has put him at 264 electoral college votes after local media also projected that he would win the state of Arizona, which hasn't voted for a Democrat since 1996. Prompting the Trump campaign to dispatch the president's personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani to the critical state of Pennsylvania, where the incumbent's lead continues to shrink as mail-in ballot votes are processed as per state law. The Republican leader's campaign is also seeking the courts to intervene in the state of Michigan, while they're expected to lodge a call for a recount in the state of Wisconsin, where Biden appears to have prevailed by about 20,000 votes.
While all of you thought there was some kind of legitimate count going on here in Philadelphia, it was totally illegitimate. So we went back to court, and we went before a Democrat judge. No need to tell you what the result in Philadelphia is if you're before a Democrat judge. Obviously a political hack who doesn't know the meaning of the word observe. Observe means to be able to look. Not a single Republican has been able to look at any one of these mail ballots. They could be from Mars as far as we're concerned.
Biden, for his part, has called for all ballots to be counted and addressed his supporters late Wednesday, just as the series of lawsuits from the Trump campaign emerged.
Every vote must be counted. No one's going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever. America's come too far. America's fought too many battles. America's endured too much to ever let that happen. We, the people, will not be silenced. We, the people, will not be bullied. We, the people, will not surrender.
With mail-in ballots still outstanding in several states, Biden also had a slight edge of around 8,000 votes in Nevada, which, if sustained, could put him over the top. Trump continues to hold an advantage in Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Alaska. States that, were he to win them all, would still not put him over 270 electoral college delegates required to retain the White House. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Let's get the latest now. Joining us via Skype, our US correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease. Sherwin, good to have you with us. Let's get an update from you. How are we looking on the electoral vote at the moment? Because I'm looking at two different figures. So I look at Associated Press. They are saying that Biden is 6 votes away. CNN, however, are a much further journey ahead for Joe Biden. What are the real numbers? What are we looking at right now?
I just firstly want to disagree with Sakina. I also like elections, but I like to get the results on the same night. So just a clarification.
Which means you haven't slept.
Exactly. And remember, Leanne, we're 24 hours after the polls closed here, and we still don't know who the next president-elect is going to be of the United States. But certainly Joe Biden now with an edge, he is in touch. I'm glad you pointed out that the Associated Press and Fox News are the two outliers in terms of calling Arizona for the former Democratic vice president. Of course, the majority, including CNN and the New York Times, have Joe Biden at 253 electoral college votes. And it's kind of strange watching the CNN tonight because they're kind of talking about how Arizona might go for Biden when AP and Fox have actually called it already. The president has 214 electoral college votes, so if he needs to really start racking up these swing state votes if he wants to retain the White House, we're talking about places like Georgia, where his lead has been eaten into by the mail-in ballots that have come in favor of the Democratic nominee. We're seeing similar numbers in North Carolina, but the president's still with an edge there. But we are now seeing a lot of speculation about how Joe Biden is coming back very strongly in the state of Pennsylvania. Remember, we've been talking a lot about the rust belt, the blue wall in the Midwest, your Wisconsins, your Michigans, your Minnesotas, critical states that lost Hillary Clinton the win in 2016. Joe Biden has managed to resurrect that blue wall in the Midwest, winning Wisconsin late this afternoon, then followed by Michigan, and that's where you started seeing the Trump campaign coming forward with all these lawsuits, trying to cast aspersions before this election, Leanne, and post this election about a fraud as a result of mail-in ballots. People have taken up the option of mailing in their ballots, applying for absentee ballots. Why? Because there's a coronavirus pandemic in the United States. And in the last 24 hours, Leanne, over 100,000 new infections for the first time in the United States. So, a lot of numbers today, coronavirus over 100,000 for the first time. As we now wait to see who gets to 270, it's looking in favor of Biden right now, but we can't count our chickens before they hatch there.
We can't, but yesterday we saw US President Donald Trump count those chickens and hatch them himself, and this caused a huge outcry. What are the after effects of that? I mean, what can we expect from Trump? Whichever way the vote goes and the counting goes, it doesn't look like he's going to accept it.
No, and I think, I use this description of a fish outside water and the gyrations you see of a fish that's struggling to breathe. And I think that's what you're seeing now from the Trump campaign. Their path here to 270 is very narrow. And so to try to undermine one of the benchmarks of American democracy, which is the electoral system here. Remember, it's Ronald Reagan that referred to this country as the shining city on the hill. And now you have, people sitting in what you would previously refer to as third world countries, developing countries, kind of scratching their heads at what is going on in the United States right now. There is no fraud, Leanne. There is no evidence of fraud. And so in terms of these lawsuits that the president and his campaign will seek to pursue here, it's really murky waters, right? Very unclear what sort of judge is going to give them a hearing on falsifying claims before this process. I'll tell you how state elections work around this country. You have 50 different states and 50 different rules. But what you do have in those electoral rooms where the ballots are being counted is bipartisanship. You have Republicans in the room and you have Democrats in the room. When you talk about the New York Board of Elections, you have people at the top that are both Republican with an equivalent position to the Democrat, so that there is consensus in dividing the labor, as you will, between the two major parties in this country. So trying to cast aspersions without evidence isn't going to really fly here. Remember, the crowd size after his inauguration was bigger than Obama's. And when he won the election, he appointed a commission headed by the former governor of Kansas to investigate the so-called fraud that Hillary Clinton managed to, that basically gave Hillary Clinton the 3 million additional votes in terms of the popular vote, which she won in 2016, Leanne. And of course, that commission came back with nothing as well.
Well, I mean, we're seeing Trump has not stopped tweeting and commenting all night about what lawyers are going to be doing, what they're trying to do, saying all of a sudden now states are finding votes for Biden, and all of a sudden all the numbers are changing, and people are reminding him that's how elections work. But he is still adamant that there is something wrong. Something is going wrong with this vote. Let's just let me ask you this. I suppose it's an important question, and people are wanting to know this, and including you. When are these results going to be declared official? I mean, when are we going to, in your sort of foresight, thinking that this is when we'll know when the results are, and then we sort of deal with what comes after?
So the fastest path would be if Biden actually gets Arizona tonight, which seems likely, or early tomorrow morning. So he would then be at 264. And then tomorrow afternoon, the Nevada Elections Board has kind of said that they will only be releasing some new information by noon tomorrow. And that would depend on those. Biden is basically searching for those 6 delegates. So by midday tomorrow, I would suspect we would have a clearer indication. Some have said late on Thursday, even on Friday, if it came down to waiting for Pennsylvania. There's a big backlog in Pennsylvania. Right now, they still have 700,000 votes, and that can be very determinative of who's going to win this election. So if President Trump started winning some states and it came down then to 1 or 2 states like a Pennsylvania where there are delays, we could see this run out to Thursday. But in terms of the fastest way to this is Arizona goes Biden then wins Nevada. We could have a new president-elect by Thursday. Tomorrow is Thursday, right? Yeah.
Every day it's the same for you. Just a final question, Sherwin, before I let you go. When we look back at US history and we talk about the fact that most presidents have been re-elected for a second term. I mean, when we go back in history, in our history that we know of, except for one, I think it was Bush, if I'm not mistaken, not W. Bush, but further back. This could be a moment, another defining moment in US history, that an incumbent sitting president is not re-elected if Trump loses.
So before Bush, it was also Carter, right? Carter in the 1980s also served one term, and of course the Iran-Contra issue back at the time, really an unsettling time in the United States. But you're absolutely right. The power of incumbency in a U.S. election is very, very important. You have Air Force One that you're landing everywhere around the country. You have the FBI and the Secret Service surrounding you, but you also have the bully pulpit. Where when the president speaks, you tend to listen, whether you are running for office as a nominee for one of the major parties or not. And it is absolutely true that had Donald Trump had the economy at his back as he had before the coronavirus struck, if he had managed this coronavirus pandemic even better, he might be in a better position tonight. But that's not to say that Donald Trump didn't beat expectations, and the polls had Joe Biden within reach in terms of winning Texas and in terms of winning Florida. If Joe Biden beat him in Florida last night, right, when that result came in, this election would essentially have been over very early last night. But Donald Trump was racking up wins when people thought he was going to lose. Him being on the ticket has also essentially ensured that Republicans will retain control of the Senate. That was a big prize for Democrats in this election. Democrats have lost seats in the House of Representatives. So this was not a blue wave like a lot of people were suspecting. This is a muddy puddle. We're trying to peer into the puddle to figure out what happened. Joe Biden might get across the finish line here, but this is not a wholesale win for the Democratic Party here. The Republicans have shown up. Donald Trump supporters have shown up, and I think he's going to be grumbling way into the late parts of this week in terms of trying to get over 270. And if he doesn't, who knows?